Iran says it's received indirect messages from the United States for negotiations and that it's ready for balanced diplomacy. Security forces in Pakistan say they repelled a massive coordinated attack by separatist forces in Balochistan. And more than 200 people are killed at a mine in the mineral-rich eastern DRC as the search for the missing continues. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Mahia Mutua in Nairobi. We begin the top of the hour with Iran, where Israel says it was not involved in a series of blasts that occurred in Iran earlier today. According to a local official, the explosions which occurred in the southern Iranian port of Bandar Abbas killed one person and injured 14. Iranian media said the blast was under investigation but provided no further information. Meanwhile, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps rejected reports that a Navy commander had been targeted, calling them completely false. Well, Iran's foreign ministry says they've received messages from Washington for negotiations through intermediaries and are ready for what they called balanced diplomacy. This comes as the United States continues to threaten Iran while moving military assets to the Middle East. U.S. President Donald Trump says he has informed Iran of the deadline for a nuclear deal.
We're now sending actually a larger number of ships to Iran, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we do make a deal, that's good. If we don't make a deal, we'll see what happens.
Are you giving Iran any kind of deadline to make a deal before potentially taking
Only they
action?
know for sure.
Have you communicated that to them?
Yeah, I have.
Do you have a timeline for when you're going to pull back potentially the federal presence there?
No, we'll see how it all works out.
Well, a U.S. missile destroyer has docked at Israel's Red Sea port city of Eilat, further boosting the country's defensive capabilities in the region. Donald Trump has reportedly been briefed on multiple plans to strike Iran. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the Pentagon will be prepared to deliver what Trump expects. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian has rejected threats of force and reiterated what he called dignity-based diplomacy aligned with international law and mutual respect. The Iranian military warned it would respond quickly to any attack. Here now is our correspondent Ihsan Kevani reporting from Tehran.
Iranian political and military officials have continuously stressed that Iran is fully prepared for any possible attacks by the United States and Israel. Unfortunately, in Iran, especially in the capital, Tehran, we don't have any shelters, but the mayor of Tehran and other municipality officials have said that parking lots as well as subway stations are ready for people to be used as shelters if any attacks happen against Iran. The pressures are high here. People are scared, and I have talked to a lot of people, especially in the capital, Tehran, and they say that if anything happens like a strike or war, people in the capital, many of them are ready to evacuate and go to their hometowns and leave Tehran. And inflation is high. People are under a huge pressure, and they are scared, but they don't know what to do, in fact.
I don't know what will happen. I don't think the U.S. will attack, but if there is a war, life will become much worse.
We're worried. Prices are already high, and many people think there is a strong chance the U.S. will attack. Iran will resist, but the heavy costs have taken a toll on ordinary people.
No one can do anything to us, neither the U.S. nor Israel. We are not afraid. They cannot harm us.
All the markets are locked, and we don't have huge transactions in the market. The inflation, as I said, is really high, and people are under huge pressure, both economically and on the security front.
Well, Iran's foreign minister says Tehran is ready to return to negotiations with the U.S., but insists its defense and missile capabilities will not be part of any talks. Abbas Araghchi made the remarks during talks in Istanbul on Friday with his Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan. Meanwhile, Iran's military spokesman says U.S. military assets are within the range of Iran's medium-range missiles in the Gulf region. Michal Bardavid now reports.
Iran's foreign minister says his country is ready for what he called fair and equitable negotiations with the United States, but stressed that no preliminary arrangements for talks have yet been made. The comments come as U.S. President Donald Trump ramps up pressure on Tehran, including an increased military presence in the Gulf, while reiterating that Washington's demand that Iran not develop nuclear weapons.
The results of the negotiations will be determined at the negotiation table, not before the talks. If one side wants to impose its demands in advance, this is no longer a negotiation, and the Islamic Republic of Iran will never enter into such talks.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan said Ankara was ready to support diplomatic efforts between Washington and Tehran, while reiterating that Turkey opposes any foreign military intervention in Iran. Araghchi also said Tehran was prepared for both diplomacy and conflict, adding that Iran was even more ready than it had been in June, a reference to last year's U.S. strikes, which Washington said targeted Iranian nuclear-related facilities.
I should also state unequivocally that Iran's defensive and missile capabilities and Iran's missiles will never be the subject of any negotiations. I do not think any country is prepared to compromise with anyone over its own security and defense.
While Araghchi accused Israel of pursuing policies that destabilize the region, Turkey's foreign minister went further, claiming Israel was actively trying to persuade the United States to launch a military attack on Iran. Regional powers are stepping up diplomatic efforts to prevent a direct military confrontation between the United States and Iran, a conflict that could destabilize the wider Middle East. But with Tehran refusing to negotiate what Washington sees as a central issue, tensions remain high across the region. I'm Michal Bardavid for CGTN in Kayseri, Turkey.
In Pakistan, security officials say they've successfully repelled a coordinated attack by separatist forces in Balochistan, although at the cost of 10 security personnel and 11 civilians. The officials, who spoke on condition of anonymity, said another 24 police officers were injured. In a statement, Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi condemned the attacks and praised the security forces for their bravery. The attacks came a day after Pakistan's military said it killed dozens of militants in separate raids in the southwest region. Now, the banned separatist group, the Baloch Liberation Army, has claimed responsibility for Saturday's attacks. For more on this, here is Nadir Guramani.
Balochistan, Pakistan's largest province, has come under coordinated attacks since early hours of Saturday. The banned militant group, the Balochistan Liberation Army (BLA), announced the launch of what it calls Operation Herof 2. Following that announcement, multiple locations across the province, including the provincial capital Quetta, were targeted. Other affected areas include Gwadar, Noshki, Mastung and Haran. Meanwhile, the Deputy Commissioner of Noshki has reportedly been kidnapped by the BLA as the city remains under siege. Authorities have placed the province on high alert, with cellular and internet services suspended across large parts of Balochistan.
The Palestinian Health Ministry says fresh Israeli airstrikes in Gaza have killed at least 26 people, despite a ceasefire being in place. The strikes hit an apartment building in Gaza City and a tent in Khan Yunis. Casualties include 2 women and 6 children from 2 different families. The Israel Defense Forces did not immediately respond to questions about the strikes, which come a day before Gaza's Rafah border crossing with Egypt is set to open. The Palestinian Health Ministry reports that more than 500 people have been killed by Israeli forces since the start of the ceasefire in October. Both sides have traded blame for violations. Well, that attack comes as Israel says it will reopen the Rafah crossing with Egypt on Sunday for pedestrian movement in both directions. The move follows the recovery of the body of the last Israeli hostage in Gaza as the first phase of the ceasefire agreement comes to a close. The The closure of the Rafah crossing has disrupted the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Thousands of patients trapped in Gaza are looking forward to the reopening, since it will allow them to receive treatment abroad. Right, let's turn to the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, where more than 200 people are reported to have been killed in a landslide near the city of Goma. The deaths occurred at a coltan mine in Rubaya, which caved in from the extra pressure from Wednesday's landslide. Rescuers have begun retrieving bodies from the scene, with the death toll expected to rise further. CGTN's Jane Keo tells us more.
Local authorities say a landslide at Gakombe coltan mining quarry in North Kivu province has buried alive over 200 people, with women and children among them. It came following heavy rains in the Rubaya area, which is located some 60 kilometers northwest of the rebel-held city of Goma. The landslide swept away everything in its path, causing the mine to cave in. Eyewitnesses have been giving their accounts of events. Some say they were very lucky to survive.
It rained, a landslide followed, and it swept people away. Some were swallowed up. Others died in the wells. Many are still trapped inside.
The hillside collapsed on me while I was digging to extract minerals.
Goma's mayor says he's been visiting those admitted to hospital with injuries. He told media that some bodies have been retrieved, but many remain missing.
We sympathize with you for this tragedy that has happened to you. We ask you to help us develop strategies to end this kind of tragedies. I just learned that in 2017, more than 2,000 people died after another landslide. With what has just happened to you today, we ask the population to be vigilant. It's good to look for money, but you can't have money if you are not alive.
The search and rescue efforts will continue for another few days, with hopes that some survivors can be found under the rubble. Jane Keo, CGTN.
Well, earlier on, we spoke to our correspondent Jafar Al-Katanti, who's based in Goma. Here is what he had to say.
The information is so bad because many people have been killed and others still missing till now in the city of Rubaya. As you know, Rubaya is one of the important and biggest mining sites of coltan in the eastern DRC, where more than 1,000 of people work every day. And last night, there was a problem with a lot of rains who causes that landslide. And till now, we still don't have the real records because many people, including even children, were around the mine and they are still missing. That's another problem. The way to Rubaya from Goma is not good. And in this rain season, I don't expect that any help will arrive in Rubaya sooner because can you imagine? The drama was on Friday, and it's in the evening of yesterday that we knew here in Goma, while from Rubaya to Goma is just 60 kilometers. The first problem is the lack of communication because the zone of North Kivu had a problem of internet and mobile phone service, except the city of Goma, which is served, but all other villages doesn't have network. So the communication between Rubaya and Goma is different. It is difficult from giving any information to see or to know how and when the rescue teams will arrive in Rubaya is impossible for now.
Now let's take you to Nigeria, where at least 25 people have been killed in suspected Boko Haram militant attacks in the country's volatile northeast. In one attack, some of the victims were casual laborers who had traveled to the town of Sabongari to work on a construction site when gunmen opened fire. That is according to some relatives of the victims there. Meanwhile, in a separate attack on the same day, a military spokesperson said that fighters struck an army base, killing at least 9 soldiers and 2 members of a civilian task force, while also wounding 16 others. The attacks happened in the state of Borno, which remains the epicenter of a 17-year insurgency by Boko Haram and Islamic State's West Africa province, with militants repeatedly targeting military convoys and civilians. Nigeria has faced sustained pressure to restore security, including cooperation with U.S. forces following recent counter-terror operations. Let's turn to Ethiopia, where tensions are mounting in the volatile northern region of Tigray. Clashes have been reported there this week, 3 years after a peace deal that ended a brutal civil war between the army and the regional Tigray People's Liberation Front. Flights into Tigray remain cancelled and residents are now fearing the worst. The African Union has called for dialogue, urging all parties to exercise maximum restraint. CGTN's David Mbithi has the details.
For now, a sense of normalcy prevails in Mekelle, the largest city in northern Ethiopia, the capital of the Tigray region. But news of clashes between regional forces and federal troops in western Tigray is fueling fresh anxiety. Some say the memories of siege and fighting remain fresh in their minds and fear that renewed instability could force young people back into war.
We are very concerned about the current situation. As in the past, we fear having to send our children to war. We also fear running out of money. We fear seeing the siege again. We fear sending our children into a war. We are saying that the past is enough.
Many queuing at the banks have also voiced frustration, saying they're only allowed to withdraw 2,000 Ethiopian birr, the equivalent of $13 US. Shopona Tsehaya Gebremichael says businesses are still recovering from the devastating 2-year war that ended with the 2022 peace agreement.
This is very worrying. When we compare with the past, we faced a lot of damage, especially when you see it through the eyes of a business owner. We lost our time as young people. Our next plans failed due to the war. We fell behind in technology and networks. I also believe that, with regard to banking services, the situation can create problems.
Ethiopia's national carrier has cancelled flights to and from the troubled region, with customers receiving messages that cited unplanned circumstances. The carrier issued no public statement, and neither did Ethiopian authorities. The African Union is calling for de-escalation 3 years since the region emerged from a conflict it says killed at least 600,000 people. David Mbithi, CGTN.
The United Nations is warning of a rapidly worsening humanitarian crisis in South Sudan as escalating violence in Jonglei state drives mass displacement and disease, while also putting civilians at growing risk. Aid operations are also under severe strain, with access a growing problem. A senior UN official says communities are now facing extremely dangerous conditions.
While the fighting is force on force at the moment, civilians are caught in the crossfire, losing their lives, their homes, with over 200,000 people reportedly displaced by the Jonglei conflict this month alone. These vulnerable communities are further impacted by a sharp surge in cholera, with 125 cases reported in Jonglei this month alone. We've had 479 cases reported countrywide. And this comes after we've just gotten out of a bad outbreak of cholera, the worst that South Sudan has seen, with over 97,000 cases overall. Treatment centers are overwhelmed and critically short of supplies. An emergency response in Jonglei is currently underway.
The South African Air Force has celebrated Air Force Prestige Day. Officials say it's aimed at commemorating years of existence and the service it renders to the country. A ceremony at Air Force Base Swartkop in Pretoria included a parade and several mass flypasts. Here now is CGTN's Yolisa Njamela with the story.
Honoring and celebrating men and women in uniform. Organizers say the purpose of the parade is to not only showcase the capabilities of the South African Air Force, but to also revere and acknowledge exceptional performance by directorates, bases, squadrons, and units.
What is important for South Africa is to get these aircraft in the air. What is important for South Africa is to ensure that there is serviceable spares. So we will go anywhere to ensure that those aircraft and the spares that are required are made available so that we can be in a position to execute our mandate.
In true military style and precision, crowds here were treated to well-coordinated army drills and imposing aircraft maneuvers. A mass flypast displayed the many derivatives of aircraft that the Air Force currently uses for a variety of missions in both South Africa and across the continent. Spectators were highly impressed.
The show was absolutely breathtaking. It was shocking, really. It was also inspiring when the speeches began. I really started feeling a lot, and I just wanted to, I really felt what it felt like to be a South African, and I was very proud of my country, seeing how we are developing, and as we are producing, I was just very encouraged and very inspired.
It was very nice, and I would encourage other youth to attend such events because you get to interact with the people who are fighting for our country, and that is very inspiring.
An inspiration for the youth that the Air Force is also aiming for.
The role of the South African Air Force in terms of youth development is very important, because all of us, we come as young people, join the Air Force, and at some stage we peel off. We need the feeder. We need young people who will come and take the positions and move forward.
The South African Air Force is the second oldest air force in the world. Some of its units are part of the peace, security, and stability efforts on the continent. With such a concentration on youth development and peacekeeping, it seems its future looks bright and appealing. Yulisa Njamela for CGTN in Pretoria, South Africa.
Right, it's time for a short break. Here's what's ahead in sports. Athletes arrive at the Olympic Village in Milan ahead of the 2026 Winter Games, which open next weekend. Straight into the sport, and we begin with football from the CAF Champions League, where match day 4 of the group stage continues. Egyptian giants Al Ahly were held to a 1-1 draw earlier today by their Tanzanian champions, Young Africans, at the Amani Stadium in Zanzibar. Ibrahim Baka gave the hosts the lead just before halftime, but Aliou Dieng equalized on the hour mark. The result keeps Al Ahly top of Group B on 8 points, while Young Africans remain second with 5 points. Well, the CAF Champions League continues tomorrow with the Group A clash between title holders Pyramids FC of Egypt and the visiting Moroccan giants RS Berkane headlining the fixtures. They are well clear of Nigerian champions River United and Power Dynamos of Zambia, who play in the other game in Group A. In Group C, Saint-Eloi Lupopo of the DRC visit bottom side MC Alger, and Tanzanian heavyweights Simba welcome 4-time winners Esperance de Tunisia to Zanzibar in Group D. In that Group C match, Congolese side Saint-Eloi said they are not traveling to Algeria for tourism and are desperate to get a positive result. MC Alger is still searching for its first win in the group, while Lupopo have already collected 4 points. Victory for the visitors could lift them into second place.
We are determined to respond well during this match because we know it is a very important game that will allow us to really take off in this competition. So we are not really making calculations. We have to take the 3 points. We must be ready in all aspects of the game. With our home crowd, we know we are capable of doing great things.
MC Alger is a good team. We are not even going to look at the standings because they remain a good team. Both teams know each other better now after our last game. So it's going to be a very good match. We must be focused, determined, and be brave.
In the English Premier League, Arsenal restored their 7-point lead at the top of the table with a commanding 4-0 victory over Leeds United. Mikel Arteta's side arrived at Elland Road under pressure following last weekend's home defeat to Manchester United, but responded in emphatic fashion this afternoon. Martin Zubimendi opened the scoring before an own goal by goalkeeper Carl Darlow doubled the advantage. Victor Gyökeres and Gabriel Jesus added second-half goals to seal a comfortable win. Arsenal's closest title challengers, Manchester City and Aston Villa, are both in action on Sunday. Well, with less than a week to go to the start of the Winter Olympics, athletes are continuing to arrive in Milan as preparations enter the final phase. On Saturday, competitors from China, Japan, Canada, the United States and the Netherlands were seen making their way into the Olympic Village. Across the northern Italian city, banners and signs have been hung from apartment windows, adding to the growing Olympic atmosphere. The Winter Games returned to Italy for the first time since 2006, with events taking place in Milan and across several mountain venues, including Cortina and Livigno. The opening ceremony takes place next Friday, although some events will begin earlier in the week. Meanwhile, the International Olympic Committee Executive Board has met in Milan. Zimbabwean IOC President Kirsty Coventry spoke at the start of the two-day meeting as she prepares to oversee her first Olympic Games since succeeding Thomas Bach last year.
We're very excited to finally be here in Milan Cortina. The last time we were all here in this room was in September last year. And I think you're going to see incredible strides that have been taken over the last few months. Just in the last week since we've been here, it's really moving at a fast pace. The teams are working extremely well. I have to thank our team sitting around the table and all the directors for working so closely with the NICO team. I think it's greatly appreciated. And we've seen huge strides in so many things.
Now to Australian Open tennis, where Elena Rybakina produced a powerful finish to outclass world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka and win the women's singles title in Melbourne on Saturday. The Kazakh broke early and served well from there to take the first set 6-4. However, Sabalenka, a two-time champion in Melbourne herself, found her rhythm in the second. The 27-year-old went on to take it 6-4 before racing into a 3-love lead in the decider. Yet that's as good as it got for the Belarusian, as Rybakina stormed back to win 6 of the last 7 games and claim her second major championship. She moves up to number 3 in the world. And that's where we leave it on this edition of Africa Live. Do remember, as always, you can send your feedback to the contacts on your screen and give us a follow on our digital media platforms. I'm Mahia Mutua. Thanks for watching.
United States has formally withdrawn from the World Health Organization, ending a relationship that dates back to the founding of the United Nations global health body more than 70 years ago. For Africa, where WHO plays a key role in disease surveillance, outbreak response and health system support, the move carries real consequences. But this is part of a broader shift. Washington has also announced its withdrawal from dozens of other international organizations spanning development, climate, governance and peace building, pointing to a wider reassessment of U.S. engagement with the multilateral system. So this week on the program, we look at what this changing global landscape means for Africa, from health security and preparedness to funding gaps and resilience. We also explore how African countries can respond in a more uncertain era. I'm Beatrice Marshall. Welcome to Talk Africa. And to help us unpack what this shift means for Africa, I'm now joined by our panel of experts. With me in studio, Dr. Victor Ngani, healthcare leader and consultant. Joining us in Abuja, Dr. Agbo Ebuta, global health expert. And from Johannesburg via Zoom, Dr. Oscar Van Heeden, geopolitical analyst. Gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you all and thank you for joining in this discussion. Dr. Van Heeden, let me start off with you. The U.S. has now formally exited the World Health Organization, and this comes alongside its withdrawal from dozens of other global institutions. From your perspective, though, what does this signal about the future direction of multilateral organizations rather than just WHO alone?
Yeah, no, I think this is consistent with what the Trump administration has been doing, as you say, over the last few months. They have withdrawn from a number of multilateral institutions. They're not interested in multilateralism. I think what is important for the viewers is to realize that when Donald Trump took over the presidency in the United States Incorporation, if we see it as a company, was in business rescue. Trump is trying to save a incorporation that is going down.
Right.
Now, one of the first things you do when you are busy with business rescue is you have to cut expenditure. You have to slash employees, which we saw that Elon Musk did in the first few months, trimming out the federal government by firing a lot of people and so on, closing a lot of things, pulling back on aid in many third world countries, developing economies. And so now it is the time of multilateral institutions, because the United States, as you know, is usually one of the big funders, whether it is in the WHO, whether it is the United Nations and many others. And I think that the CEO, Mr. Trump, has decided to withdraw from these multilateral organizations and save money, because they are not prepared to spend money on global health when their own citizens don't have access to healthcare. I think this is how we need to see what's happening here.
Dr. Ebuta, let me get your thoughts on that.
It's a very unfortunate and very disruptive policy coming from the U.S. at this point in time, where we are trying to build cohesion and build on the success on the fight against global diseases that affect countries and across. So it's really going to deal a heavy blow, because the withdrawal of the U.S.